Okay.
Some of the things later in your agenda.
Okay. All right. I really apologize, guys. I don't know why I did that, but here I am. So, to start again with the agenda, any questions or problems with the agenda?
I think the last version you sent me just a few minutes ago still had approved minutes of June meeting.
Oh, that has been changed. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I must probably not clicked on the old one. But
Okay.
the changes you put in, Peggy, I did correct.
Okay.
The one question mark was was one of the pieces of land over by Sewell's Gutter, and that actually is a neighborhood piece of land. That's not a town piece.
Okay. Yeah, I think that was 187.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Anybody else? Okay. A move to accept.
So move. Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Accepted. So minutes from the last meeting. Again, I think I included, so if it's not here, Peggy had some corrections, and I think Denny had one. So, but they were mostly colons and et cetera. It's not any questions, problems with the minutes from the last meeting?
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Tom.
Mm.
It's a lot of work, Tom.
Yeah,
Appreciated.
okay.
Well, I may be approaching retirement. Anyway.
Any excited volunteers out there? All right, maybe sometime. Okay, move to accept.
So move.
Accept it. Second.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody against it? Okay.
Do we want to hear from Bob, by the way? It looks like both of Bob's speakers are off.
Oh,
So I don't know if Bob can hear us and if he wants to turn one of them on.
Oh,
You hear me
Bob.
now?
yeah.
can you hear me? Yep, we got you.
So this way he can vote.
Yeah, I did vote. But
Okay.
We didn't see your hand though.
Sorry about that. Are you in? You are muting yourself, Denny, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, I just unmuted, but you can do it. All right. The reports, I think I'll get to lower in the meeting as we go along. Anything on your part, Tom, for the vice chair?
No, other than you're to be congratulated on your performance at town meeting. It was carried out very smoothly. And our article that wasn't pulled went through without I don't think there was any objection, was there? Unanimous?
No, that,
Yeah.
well, let me just say, I was going to address it later, but I was very delighted that I think that piece of property next to Pleasant Point is just a wonderful piece. And the path to get in there is great to have that. So I really felt good. The other piece, I don't say what happened was, in talking about the property as we got closer with Hillary and Debbie, they really said, listen, we're not comfortable having making decisions around those groins if it's our property. And, I was thinking, I don't actually oppose that. I'm very sorry that this came up so last minute. I present this stuff to Conscom every year, and, it was accepted, and there weren't any questions until, the last minute here. But even the property that we were able to get in, we actually held off. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that was a highest priority kind of property for a long time. The reason that we didn't bring it before town meeting before is that the Barbara Wright and those people, the seawalls were there. And as long as the seawalls were going to be a problem, we didn't want to go forward and try to put this into conservation. So from my perspective, it's somewhat the same issue. They're saying that these small jetties are essentially the same as a seawall, and they have problems with it. Like I said, I think it's a lesson for the future in that, we really to troubleshoot and make sure we're all on the same page, because we got a unanimous vote from Conscom, and it wasn't until the very end that there were problems. The other thing I wanted to mention that I think is really something that's worth looking at is that Ryan Hurley, on the night of the pre-town meeting, also looked at 2012 and said that that is an approved landing for the town, and that is in fact listed. I said, well, I don't know why you couldn't put the landing into conservation anyway. I'm not convinced that that makes sense. I don't know if you have thoughts on that, Denny, but I'm thinking that he has a point with that, and there might have been other reasons. It was a moot point, as it turns out, because Conscom didn't want the property. But it was an interesting point from where I sit, because what's conservation, what's a beach, and how do you make those decisions? Any other thoughts, any input on that?
Well, I just comment a couple things. Oh dear, I'm on feedback. Number one, we have a town landing at Old Wharf Point. And that has worked out fine as long as people just keep on moving.
Right.
The problem is when somebody decides that they want to leave their kayaks and do all sorts of things at a town landing. And that's something that John Reel, Falcone, or whatever his name is, need to look at to understand what a right-of-way is versus ownership.
Right.
Because, I'd let them move on and try to just encounter the problem, and then you can see what you want to do.
Right.
Now, you said one of those 2012 was a right-of-way to the water?
Yes.
Which one's that?
That's the small middle one, I believe, Danny. Let me see.
Oh, okay.
Yep, it is.
All right.
And that was listed. And in fact, what I did was, given his point, I looked at Old Wharf, at Fields Point, at a number of places that I thought might be considered landings. And this is the only one, besides Powers Landing, et cetera, that's actually listed as a landing in the assessor's database. So I'm not sure what that means, but I assumed the reason I said, no, we can put it into conservation is exactly what you're saying, Denny. We have Old Wharf, we have a number of other of the properties, but when I check those out in the assessor's database, none of those are listed as town landings, interestingly, except for number 12. So for what that's worth. But anyway, the good news was that we got our main goal done, and the other, I think is a learning lesson in terms of making sure we're all on the same page to begin with. Okay, property management, Fred, anything?
Am I going to have a? Is this okay?
We can hear you.
Okay. The only thing I would mention is that it's time to start looking at the conservation properties, which we do every year. So if any folks want to get involved with that, let me know. I assume we'll be able to get the books, have the descriptions of the properties and the past reports in from the office down there.
Yeah, we may be a little early in starting. I think when the leaves fall, you do better in terms of really seeing everything. But, certainly it doesn't hurt to check them more than once even. With the books, it's one of the things that I was writing in my note is that we are now behind probably 3 years at least in the properties. We've been following the properties. We get that information to Hillary and Doug, but we don't have those books done. So I'm hoping maybe if we can get a group or a couple people who would be willing to work on that. And even if we can't do it at the DPW, maybe we can get those removed from the DPW so we can work on them outside.
Bruce, what do you mean by that? You mean the data hasn't been entered or what?
We actually don't have the folders on the last several years' properties. So the data has not, we have the data, we've been writing the data and we report it, but the properties don't have a folder of their own. We don't have a good way to look at all that. We need to work on that. My hope was that last year, if Denny's able to release the AmeriCorps workers, that that would be helpful, but it just hasn't worked. There hasn't been enough work on his part that's not been working for us.
Bruce?
Yeah.
If I may, number one, I think you guys really need to coordinate better with Doug Gwaley. Doug's out there doing that same exercise. I'm not sure what his documentation is, and he has access to the AmeriCorps person. So you really need to coordinate through him or with
Through
him.
Doug. Okay.
Yeah, I think it'll make things work a lot better. I don't know if you're aware, but AmeriCorps is starting up next week. And unfortunately, our AmeriCorps is going to be different from Doug's AmeriCorps. And so there is not that overlap that we've had in the past. But Doug's pretty savvy on the notebooks and all that sort of stuff. So
Right.
I think you can do well with him.
Okay. Well, I'll start there then. Let's see whether he feels like the AmeriCorps member has time for us, because that would be tremendously helpful.
I think it would be beneficial to the AmeriCorps member if one of you or two of you goes out on mission and just all work together. I know you can't get too cozy, but you can at least inspect the properties.
Oh yeah, we've been inspecting the properties every year. I mean, that's not been an issue, and we do report it to Doug. But the documentation has not been what it should be over the last few years. Okay, so I'll talk with Doug, see if we can start there. And anybody, as Fred said, as we're getting ready, contact him or contact me to start doing. But we may be pushing it a little bit. It might another month or so. I think a month and a half might be better time to start. Trail guides, anything, Bob?
Bruce?
No,
No, go ahead.
I don't have anything. I don't even know where they're distributed these days. I think it's
Okay, and Lynn's not able to come, so we can. Okay, did you want to say something else, Danny?
I was just going to say that we do not start our inspections until the leaves are off. And it really does make life a lot easier. And also, some of the inspections are drive-by, which is adequate. If it's abutting up to your property or something like that, that's fine. But
Yeah.
And so we don't need a detailed inspection unless something's very obvious.
Okay. Elementary school, Bob, I assume nothing.
nothing happening yet.
Conservation Trust, I know you had a meeting last Monday. Danny, anything you want to report?
Well, we have a meeting next Monday.
Yeah.
And of course, I guess you're all aware that the country club was closed. We got that project going. We're in the process of a couple of others right now, where we've got agreement on 2 lots in the Old Wharf Point area. And we haven't paid for them yet, but we've got agreement. And we've also got agreement for the marsh around, what's it called? Bayberry Lane. And it goes all the way over and touches the Bayberry trails, and it comes from our property that you hit just as you go down Bayberry Lane. And there's one vacant lot that we included in the transactions.
Wow.
Very close on closing those.
Good. Yeah, and the one at Old Wharf, as I mentioned before, there actually are 2 town lots that are right next to that. Although Fred was saying one of them is not completely in town care yet. But once you have signed off on those, Denny, it may make sense for us to go after those other 2. I think they're all right together.
Oh, yes. Yep, they are.
Yeah. Okay, housing partnership, John, anything?
I don't have anything to report.
Okay, CPC,
Got your water through.
We have a meeting tomorrow, the proposals for the Springtown meeting, I think we'll do October 15th.
NRAB,
Nothing new from them.
with old business, we reviewed the process and outcomes. The only thing I'd say, the next review, the status of the town meeting warrant 3014, I did try to make a call. Haven't talked with the Board of Selectmen yet, but I will do that. But just to get a feel for where things were with the Mass Mesa group, I have to do an email. They're not surprisingly, they are not in-house. They're taking emails and look at it. So I'm not sure. Hopefully that consultation process is still occurring, but I have started to make the connection there. Okay, so the main reason for getting together today is that if we are going to have an April meeting, then I'm not sure that the time expectations are going to be the same, but usually we've had to get our information into to the town administrator by November. So just to remind people, if we have voted on one article to include the wetlands, both at the end of the Bayberry Trail, 42137, and the wetlands in Blackfish Creek, which are mapped 30, 186, and 188. So that's one article. There are a number of other possibilities. The first one that's listed is the map 29, 400, and 505. The last I looked, 505, and Fred was saying even 400 have not been, those are tax takings, but the town has not completed them. With the Agar property, I just wanted to say, I hope everybody has had an opportunity to look at the Oliver, but I just don't think it makes sense to move forward with it, because the land that was given, Tom sent out that note from the lawyers, the land that was given to the town was not registered. And so if the town wanted to do a takeover of the property, we've used it for a long, long time, that's one thing. But if it's working right now, my thought would be to kind of let it go. To get to the Agers property, you do have to go over property that is private, is not town. If somebody else has a different thought about that, let me know. Anybody, any other thoughts or?
What do the Aggers themselves say about it?
I sat down with them today and told them what the situation was, and they say, fine, let's leave it where it is. So they're feeling okay about it.
This is Nancy. This was one of the things that I was interested in, and I wonder if it's appropriate to ask to just give me a little bit more information about where this stands. I've heard so many things about this piece of property, and it sounds like you have a lot of more up-to-date and precise information.
Sure. Basically, back in 1962, the road, which is, I have it down here, Herring Point Road, I think it is.
Heron Point Road, yep.
Right. Was given to the town, but that deed was never registered. So in 2006, the town contacted, had the lawyers look for the property. They couldn't find it, and their advice was that it's not currently town property. That, as I was saying, you can, what's the legal phrase for it? But because it's been used so frequently as a way to get in, if the town wanted to take some action, they could do that. But right now, it's essentially a private paper road that you're walking over to get to that property. So it's not actually Audubon. It's not the Agger's property. It is the end of Heron Point Road.
So are you talking about the road itself, or then once you get to the end and all the shell fishermen and all the fishermen that are fly fishing park in that little, let's just call it lot, but end of the road there where there's some snow fencing. And then to the left is that little path that goes up and over, and there's the boathouse on your left.
Correct. So the parking lot is Audubon.
Okay.
The road that you drive in is not the paper road that I'm talking about. The road you drive in is Audubon's road.
Okay.
And that's separate from the paper road. The best way to do it is to go to Oliver and,
Okay.
go into the Google Earth, and I think it's called the Mixed, or you may remember, Denny. But you'll get a really nice picture of both the land and where the paper road is located. Audubon, for their part, I was there talking with them about a month ago, and they say that they're going to put forward a memorandum of understanding that is something that's open to the shell fishermen, open to the fishermen. And my understanding is that they're going to look at that again within the next week or so. You're probably invited to that, Nancy.
Is that on the 30th?
Yeah.
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 Okay,
So
so then the paper road that you're talking about is actually that little footpath over the dune.
that is correct.
Okay. So the Aggers don't own that, and that's where I was wrong.
That is correct.
So,
Right.
okay.
I mean,
So-
because they are members of that home, that the subdivision, they have
Mhm.
some ownership of the property, if you hear what I'm saying. But it's owned by several of the houses over there.
Bruce, I mean, this has been confusing to me for a while. The property was given to the town, but the deed was never registered.
Correct.
So because the deed was never registered, the property defaults to who?
Defaults to the subdivision.
The
Is
sub.
our understanding. Now, this is one lawyer's opinion, and it's a messy situation. Who knows? It may be the town may have some rights in this, and certainly the path has been there forever, and so the town has grounds to do a taking of the property to continue the path.
Let's,
But
let's,
that would-
let's, let's look at this historically. Who's paid taxes on that property?
I don't think anybody, it's a paper road.
Okay, but if people are not paying taxes on that road, then the subdivision has no claim to it.
I believe that subdivision is entirely land courted, and so the constructive taking does not apply. You could go through a eminent domain taking, so it's a different process.
Oh, okay.
Well,
And
unless someone puts a fence or a stone wall up there, does it make sense to pursue it? Or, the town could if that happened, right?
I'd comment also that when you look at the Google hybrid on Oliver, you'll see that the paper road goes right through a series of lots that have been paid for. Taxes have been paid on those for years. And so you've got that whole issue of contesting with people who think they own the property.
Right.
And Bruce said, it's been working, so maybe the best thing is to leave it alone.
And I think that if there, for some reason, if there was some resistance to it, that the town could take some action. And I hear you, Denny, that it would have to be an eminent domain, but that's something that could be done. But right now, it seems like it's working for everybody. Certainly, David and Sharon are absolutely happy to give access to the shell fishermen and to anybody who is over there. So that has not been an issue. The reason we were moving forward with this is that, as everybody knows, sometimes those lands get sold, and not everybody is as generous as the ag rules have been. So,
Is that something that could be formalized in some way so that if they do sell the property, there's at least a previous understanding about granting access over that paper road?
It could be done, Peggy, by way of an easement that would be registered with the land court and would be into perpetuity.
and that's what we were talking. We weren't talking about buying the land, just to remind people. We were talking about getting an easement. Right.
And so this is Nancy again.
Yeah.
And that is where this whole discussion began. And now I'm going to need a refresher. So are you deciding not to do the easement? Or
Yeah, I don't think, from my perspective, I don't know what the easement gets us. I guess what people are saying, and then maybe it's worth thinking about, is that at least if we have that, and I know John Reel has felt that before, if we at least have the easement in the ag rural property, that if things, that's something that we can hold on to down the line. From my perspective, if there's a connector there that we don't have, and so rather than kind of open up that issue, my suggestion would be just to let it sit. But I could understand the other position. I mean, any other thoughts on that?
You don't have clear access to it, but that's not the point that would be guaranteed by getting an easement. The easement would give you access through it if you could get there. And so far right now, you can get there.
Right.
and is an Audubon would be the other piece of the puzzle for access, the Audubon Road?
Sure.
Because Melissa Lowe was interested in that, but when I spoke with her, I mean, I think, now something like that might bump it up to more of a national level, which she was a little, she just wants to take it slow. But if push came to shove, then maybe that would be another option to get an additional easement. And I just want to take 1 minute to introduce you all to Melissa Yao. She's sitting on the call now. She's on the Rights of Public Access Committee, the new one with John Reel and Jim Falcone. And she's a shell fisherman in town. And it's just like so Bruce Herder being open space and Denny O'Connell being Wealthy Conservation Trust and John Reel, National Resources Advisory Board. It just seems like this is a great gathering of people for her to tap into, and me too. I mean, this is all new to me still. I find it fascinating, but I just wanted to, bring her into the fold so that you recognized her as a member of a committee in town who's interested in access.
Good.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for the intro, Nancy. Yeah, I'm a member of the Rights of Public Access Committee, and I'm told that you guys have been deliberating over the Heron River Road access point, and we're actually interested in looking into the southwest corner of the island. So we think it's important that everything that we do is in alignment with whatever that you guys are thinking for the northeast corner. And I'm not sure going forward what you guys want to do, whether or not you want to coordinate with us or keep the project or pass it on, whatever you think is right.
I think it's wonderful you guys are looking at it, and it's another, Lieutenant Island, as you know, is a complicated access situation. And so it'll be really interesting to see what you guys come up with. I really hear both sides of this. That is, it sounds like you're saying too, Denny, that may make sense to have that piece anyway.
Yes.
I do to open that up, though, and to bring it to town meeting means that you're opening that whole issue up. And I'm not sure that when things are working right now, that it makes sense to bring that all to town meeting, because I think you may be opening some doors that we don't want to open. But I may be wrong. It's really a tough call, and I think the other committee can take a look at this and see what you think about it. Appreciate to get your input.
Yeah, I'm just learning now, so just trying to get up to speed. We'd love to be on the same page with you guys, so this is great.
Bruce, can I just throw in about the question of the easement? I'm not at all comfortable with just sort of leaving things as they are and see what develops down the road. Because once it develops down the road, then you're fighting in a defensive situation. You're trying to, well, now what do we do? And you get property owners mobilized against you or something. If we can do, the more we can do proactively, the better. I think it's a mistake to sort of let it sit and see if someone puts up a barrier or some property owners start making claims. If we can move ahead and get an easement now, I think we should move ahead for an easement.
Okay. The other thing I'd say with that is, again, I do absolutely hear what you're saying. And the Aggers, who have been very supportive of this, are one of the owners of that paper road. Okay. But I'll say again, you're opening that up, and you're potentially forcing the issue. And if, again, I absolutely hear what you're saying. I hear what Denny's saying, but it's I think it's a delicate balance. Let me ask you: would people feel comfortable? We have another committee looking at this. And would people feel comfortable letting this sit for a little bit until we make our decision? Or if everyone, if there's a strong feeling that we should do it, then I will. We can go forward with that. I have very mixed feelings. I think you hear that, but
Melissa, you don't know this, but I'm not a member of this committee, so I'm just John Q. Public piping up here. But I think John Kumbler has a point that it'd be nice to just button it up. I think you'll encounter other issues as you go through that process, like who is the counterparty to the Aggers. I don't know who that is. It may just be the great and wonderful town of Wellfleet. So that'll get you into a town meeting, which should be easy unless you're spending money.
Well, we would be spending money. They're asking $10,000 for it.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd have to get an appraisal on the property. We'd, there will be, hopefully the money would come out of CPC because we do have some CPC money. But this isn't, they're not just granting, they are asking for $10,000.
Okay, but I'm just saying, who's the counterparty? And I think it's the town of Wellfleet care of the Board of Selectmen. Because I don't think, or it could be put into Conscom care and custody, but it's still, the town of Wellfleet is the counterparty.
Correct. Yeah. And we wouldn't even have to put it into Conscom if they had some issues. They did the first time around, but with the access, we could do that. So is this, again, is this something that people are comfortable waiting, or would people like to take a vote today on this?
Well, it just seems to me that if the aggers are asking for remuneration, how long are they going to be happy with our not taking any action?
I don't think this is.
By postponing.
I don't think that's going to be a problem for them, frankly, in talking with them today. You know, we can ask them, but
is this something that needs to be voted on today, or is it possible that we can get more input from what the feeling of the new access committee is? I don't know. I don't have an answer, but
that's what I'm asking. So the question is, should we wait for some more information on this? There's some, I hear where people are coming. There's some feelings that, you know, waiting doesn't make sense. Why put ourselves in a one down position? Let's move forward. So I think I hear both sides of this. And so if people are, should we have a vote as to whether to vote?
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
Bruce, that since the Access Committee is interested in this, that what we do today is communicate to the Access Committee our interest in moving forward on this, but we're going to wait until next meeting, but put it on the agenda for next meeting for a vote. If that makes you feel more comfortable, that way the Access Committee can weigh in, but we're in a certain sense putting it on our agenda to be voted at that point rather than kicked down the road. I'm okay to wait another month. Who knows what the world will be like in a month?
Well, I'd like to know before this month is up, what the road to easement looks like. Is it a road that's going to go fairly smoothly, or are there going to be major bumps on there that we wish we hadn't gone down the road? Is there any way of getting a look at that road to see where the problems lie or how smoothly it will go?
well, the other thing that would be helpful is to get a detailed map of what exactly we're talking about here. I know we've looked at the all of our tracings and so forth, but you know, who owns? If the aggers don't own up to the point where the trail is being accessed, then who does? And you know, who are we dealing with, and that sort of thing.
Again, the reason I'll send it out. Let me take a picture of it and send it out to people, because I really think that the reason I keep saying that, Oliver, is because when you get the boundaries, you can see pretty clearly what's going on. My understanding, and you can, if you can give your thoughts about it too, Denny, is that the subdivision owns that paper road, and the subdivision includes the aggers, but it also includes that octagonal house that's up there and at least one other Okay.
Mhm.
You're getting into a really messy area on
Right.
paper roads and rights of way. Sometimes takes 100% of a subdivision to grant any rights of way on paper roads. And so you really need to start pushing the boundaries to find out what your problems are going to be. I think Fred's right that there probably will be some hiccups, but you won't know until you get started down that road.
Okay, so John has made, I don't know if we'll call it a motion that we wait until next month and hear what the new committee, now a month may not be enough time for them to take a look at this, but, and revisit this in a month. And revisit this for a vote in a month. Are people comfortable with that? Someone willing to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Any second?
I'll second it.
Okay.
So,
All in favor?
Bruce, some discussion?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Peggy, you're a member. Peggy, you're a member. You go first.
I just forgot what I was going to say, but it was
All right.
oh, and I think we should include in this motion that we would invite the new committee to send someone to the meeting to report on what they've investigated or what their initial thoughts are.
Absolutely. That's a friendly amendment.
Yes.
And
Thank you, Judge.
my
Intended as such.
My thought is that somebody needs to get out there and start pushing, and I don't know who you're going to talk to in the town. It doesn't matter whether it's the Access Committee or the Open Space Committee, it's going to be the same issues. And you probably need a lawyer involved, and Nancy knows what kind of mess that gets to be. But you're going to have to do some pushing to make any progress.
Okay. Anybody else? Now, the only thing I'll say about this this motion is it's a new committee, so we're assuming that they're going to have some information within the month. I do think as long as they're looking, that it really makes sense for whether it's us who ends up pushing this to at least get their thoughts on this, given that that's what their reason for being is, essentially. Again, I didn't hear what has it been seconded?
Yes, Tom.
Yes.
Okay, all in favor?
Well, just procedurally, I accept it as a friendly amendment, but the seconder has to also accept it as a friendly amendment.
I would second the second.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, again, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, so we will relook at this, and I just met with the Aggers today. I'll talk with them again. Okay, and then two other properties to discuss. One is Sewell's Gutter, and the other is at least two of the properties down at Indian Neck. And just to make a pitch, now we need to talk with Hillary, obviously, and some people, but the two properties that are on the side of the marsh, and that would be 80 and 239, are just beautiful marsh properties. Personally, when I think of conservation land, it's been sitting there for a long time, and I know there have been some issues with access. But at this point, Fred and I walked over there. It seems like there's pretty good access from the right side of Indian Neck and the beach on the left side. And I'd love to see that in conservation, whether it's this year or some of the year. Any input on that one to start there?
Well, I'll just second your comments. It is a beautiful property. The Upland Park, which is the part just if you're going out that road, it's on the right-hand side, runs to the edge of the marsh. And then the marsh runs out another 200 feet or so. It's a beautiful marsh, undisturbed. There were willets out in there earlier in the summer, breeding, and some sparrows. I don't know whether they were salt marsh sparrows or some other kind of sparrows. But anyway, it's a live habitat, and I think it offers good protection for Chipman Cove. Marshes are nurseries, and it's in beautiful shape.
Okay. I think with this property, what makes sense, if people is at least for people to take a site visit out there and take a look at it. The only other, there's a property also to the left that is right between the Conservation Trust property and town conservation property, and there's about 4+ acres. The problem with that one is that it is seen as a buildable lot. It's pretty highly valued, and again, I'm not sure there wouldn't be some issues there, but again, that I think would be wonderful conservation myself. But certainly the other one, I think makes sense unless there are some real access issues from the shell fishermen, or some other things that we're not seeing. But when Fred and I went out, it's pretty clearly marked where the marsh starts. It says no cars past here. There's a path that's already on that property that's really beautiful. And so anyway, something to think about. I don't think we need to make a decision. Any comments on that, or can we figure out a time to go out and visit it?
Bruce, I'm concerned that you're taking off the table the other lot.
What other lot? Oh, no, I'm not taking it off the table.
Because I think, conservation, that open spaces has to be not just about, what nobody can build on, but about a sort of larger vision of protected property. And we have conservation land on one side, expanding the area that is open, which means if it's a buildable lot, but it's not buildable, if it's not built on because it's in conservation, that opens more space for animals to traverse without running into structures and impediments. It opens up more of a vista. I think we should be much more aggressive at going after lots, even when they're buildable, especially one that's next to a existing conservation space. So I'm very concerned that we're sort of backing away from lot because it might be buildable.
Right. Nope, I hear you. And it is between two protected areas right now. There are some real positives for it, but I do want to, just like with number 12, that's a landing. Does that make any difference? At least to have the discussion. And, for me, it makes a difference that this is a highly valued land. I hear you, John. It's a beautiful piece of property. It's between two, and it may make sense to move on the whole thing. But I want to at least put that out there so that everybody's aware, because it's different than the other two, which are not buildable. So
I have a question again, Nancy.
Yeah.
So when I was looking at the assessing maps yesterday in preparation for this, so these are kind of like to the left of Indian Neck Road, kind of in between what I'd call a middle pass out to the recreational only area, and then to the right of the road, and then into the marsh. These 3 parcels are like right in a horizontal line. Is that correct?
that is correct.
Okay, so, and I think that before, in the past, there had been a road that shell fishermen used, which is now blocked. They can't go down there anymore. I'm sure you guys know better than me. I've only heard about it. So my question is, I think that keeping these in open space is really important. The last thing that we'd want to see, honestly, right now is, any other structures on Chipman's Cove when we're so concerned about water quality. I just would never want to see another septic over there. That's my personal opinion. But I I was curious, when something gets taken over by open space or by the Conservation Commission or by the Wellfleet Conservation Trust, does this mean that access, for example, for shellfishing or walking, birding, fishing, does that mean that those types of historical uses get affected? Or, because I remember when I very first started, there was a piece of property over, I think it was on Lieutenant Island, and Michael Parlanti said, you've got to have your eyes on this. You've got to make sure that we maintain access. So, part of the reason that I'm tuning in is because I do feel like it's my responsibility to make sure that we maintain access. On the other hand, preserving things in their natural state is a benefit to the shellfishing community and to our natural environment. So I'm sure that there's a way for us to all, be on the same page about it. Like Melissa was saying, if you could explain a little bit to me as I'm learning, I'd appreciate it.
Well, and do you want to do it too, Denny? Let me just say, and then get Denny's input, but there's access for all of the things that you talked about, and certainly walking access, etc. One of the things that already exists out there is that there's a sign that says no cars beyond this point. And obviously, if we're protecting that property, we would not want there to be people, driving the beach grass, etc. But in terms of access for any of these properties, that's something that not only is there, but I was walking on one of the trails today, the Clover property, so that there are walking trails that can be there. Passive recreation is completely allowed. And by Massachusetts law, is my understanding, that birding, fishing, and hunting are protected. So, do you have anything else, Denny?
I think there's already good access there. As you said, there's an established trail that people will use to do shellfishing or just to go out and sit on the beach on the Wellfleet Bay side. And on the Cove side, the parcel next north of the parcels we're talking about is where trucks go down to offload boats and so on. So it is already used to access the Cove area. And I see nobody ever trying to access through the properties we're talking about.
Well, I think about 10 years ago, Hillary got very involved with that parcel over there. And that's when that fence went up to stop the driving that went through that parcel and on down through the grass and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And there were some emotions at the time, but I think people have gotten used to it and have learned how to live with it.
Yeah, so one of the things is like when you go through the Indian Neck parking lot and you got where the potties are, and then there's like a dirt road on either side. And if you go out to the end there where there's all the kayaks, and on the right, well, both sides are access on the left side to the grants and to wild shellfishing, and on the right side to wild shellfishing. And people do drive their trucks, including the shellfish department, as far down as you can go without going on the beach grass. And this looks like it's directly on parcel 239. It's a preferred area for quahogs, which are very heavy. So, I understand people wanting to, sometimes back down there and be able to get their catch right on and not have to drag it up. So when these parcels, though, go into a different, they're not just town owned or whatever, do certain mandates go into effect, or do we negotiate to maintain access as long as it's respecting our natural environment?
Nancy, my understanding, and we had this before, this very discussion a couple years ago, is that putting it in conservation does not restrict it from traditional use. But
Okay.
the property, it's the the use of the property cannot be destructive to the natural environment. So that, and that would be true even if it was a piece of private property. If someone was driving down within the 100 feet of the wetland, then conservation would come into play. But I don't see it. I actually think putting in conservation is a protection for the fishermen, because the private owners can restrict the access over their land. They can't, there's a limit to that, because under the ancient charters, any has access to a great pond or body of water to fish fowl or fish for fowl, but they can still make it much more difficult for the shell fishermen if it's in private hands than I think if it's in public hands. So I would think, yes, there has to be negotiations, and you can't have the natural resource being destroyed. But I think the fishermen are interested in destroying the natural resource.
Exactly.
I see there's a conflict unless we want to make it a conflict. And I don't see anyone on either side wanting to make it a conflict.
Agreed. Okay, thank you. And I really appreciate you guys taking the time today to educate.
The other thing, Nancy, I'd say is that this is the first time we're bringing these properties up. We haven't even done our site visit. And obviously, this is something that would go to all the committees, including the Shell Fishing Committee. And hopefully, there are negotiations that can happen around this. I just, walking out there, as Fred was so eloquently saying, it's just a lovely and healthy marsh, healthy shellfish. I mean, I really think that there are some reasons to do it, but this is just the beginning of the process. So hopefully we'll move forward, and certainly that'll go to your committee and see where it goes.
Bruce, can I just comment? Nancy asked about WCT. WCT is not part of the town of Wellfleet government. We are a private landowner, and so it's like dealing with any private landowner. I think, we certainly support passive recreational use and all that sort of stuff. But the idea, and if talked to and brought through the process, we certainly would like to work with the shellfish community. So we can do that. But frankly, the CONSCOM has jurisdiction over our land just as they do every other land. And we have to be able to not put ourselves in a position where the CONSCOM can fine us for violating law, because we're the landowner. So we are sensitive to it. And so that's how we try to play it.
Thanks.
And any other comments on this? Again, we're bringing this up. I have to say, I do love the property over there, and but it's just beginning of the process. And I think to do a site visit makes sense if we can figure a time. We'll do that after the meeting. And the last one to bring up is the Sewell's gutter property. And again, that does not include 187, but 234 and 235. And a number of us did go on a site visit to that property. Any comments on that in terms of?
I'd ask Melissa if that road that goes out there, can't remember the name of the road.
Omaha?
Is Omaha a town landing?
No, it's not. Again, I looked at all, at least in the assessor's database. Like you say, I always thought that Old Wharf was a town landing. They're not listed as town landings. I mean, the irony is that one of the few. So whether there's some other way to find that out, I don't know. But at least looking at the database, it wasn't in there.
Well, I don't know if there's a difference between a town landing and access rights to the shore. And I don't know if that Omaha Road is access or if it's just never been addressed. Melissa, do you have any idea if your committee's looked at that? You're blanked. There you go.
We have not looked at it. We just had a meeting yesterday, but we would definitely be interested in something like this. I don't know if Nancy has any idea of what the shellfish department considers it as, whether or not it's a landing, because I think when we land our shellfish, it is at that site.
Yeah. So the shellfish department would consider it a landing in that you got to have your tags on once you hit that
Yeah.
egress. Your shellfish needs to be tagged. If you're looking at the water, the road and the left-hand side is all in private ownership of the Field Point Homeowners Association. And there is a stretch which you can see. Hold on, let me call up because I was just looking at this. So parcel, 234. 234 goes all the way across, and actually part of the road, or just like the very right-hand side of the road looking at the water, is abutting or perhaps partially on town property, parcel 234, map 28. And then behind that, 188 is, I believe, is that the Wellfleet Conservation Trust, Denny? Sewell's got it?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes.
So, there's some discussions going on right now with the homeowners association. One of the people there just sent me a picture from high tide yesterday. There's an issue with the kayaks down there that is already looking into. There's an issue with all the beach goers in the summer parking down there. From a shellfishing perspective, not just for wild, but, there's 25 plus farms out there, and that's now all town property right up to the seawalls the town of Wellfleet owns. That was that $2 million purchase of Hilta Trust, the How Do You Like Them Apples Trust, that Helen Miranda Wilson donated $1 million for. So, we are now very much abutters town, both with parcel 234 and with the Hilda Trust purchase. So I'm hoping to work with the Field Point Association to broker, maybe some participation in grading the road in some form, because the shellfishermen use it a lot, and then just try and work something out so that we are working in partnership with the homeowners association. So that is something that I'm sure the Public Rights of Access Committee will be looking at, as and the department will, the shellfish department will participate. And I think turning that 234 and I think, what is the other one, 235 or something, those two into conservation or into open space is important. There's some issues down there, and there's going to be continued issues with sea level rise. So I think that, as John Kumbler was saying earlier, the more proactive that we can be in these types of negotiations and creative solutions, the better we're going to be off in the long run, or the better off we're going to be in the long run. It's complicated over there because that road is actually owned by the Field Point Homeowners Association.
Right.
They have a verbal agreement with shellfishermen allowing them to use it.
Yeah, the other thing that I was struck by, I was kayaking out from Blackfish Creek over to the harbor, and on a particularly nice Sunday, and that was a bigger beach area than Indian Neck was that day. I mean, the number of people was really. So this is really a question. Maybe you can address it, Denny, as well as. But again, I'd like to find out where you can find out what is a town landing, And if it is there any prescription against this going into conservation? Now, I know you talked about Old Wharf, and you guys have Old Wharf that is in conservation, and they are using it. So I assume it's
But
not.
no, but there is a deeded right-of-way, access way to the water across our property. We own the property, but we have to allow access.
So and again, there's part of this property does hit the road, but it really, there's that issue on the left-hand side, but then there's more the issue of there's a lot of use. The kayaks are really a problem. And, in terms of most of the land that we're looking at, that would be the issue. I guess for me, there's a question about where passive recreation stops and a beach or, if it is a beach or landing begins over there. I had very rarely been over there. We went one time for the site visit, but it was quite dramatic on this Sunday afternoon we went, how many people were using that property.
A lot of people from the King Philip subdivision use that beach quite a bit, but there are also interlopers that come in there and use that beach because it's such a pleasant beach.
Yeah.
It is a very nice beach.
One of the interlopers.
Well, no, I'm
No,
not there for conservation to inspect property, and I keep thinking, boy, it's a nice beach. Unfortunately, there's no place to park.
That's right.
Right.
So I guess one of my, was that you, Nancy?
Yeah, but I'm not going to interrupt.
Oh, I was going to just ask if those two pieces, though, are owned by the town. What is the distinction between being town-owned and that land being designated as a town landing?
That's a question that I have. I mean, other people may. Is there a distinction? I mean, I actually had, because of Old Wharf and some other ones, had really not seen it. Ryan Curley actually brought this up at the pre-town meeting, and I thought, is there a point here?
Because it
I don't know
sounds,
the answer to that.
Bruce,
because we're talking
think
about,
the town can sell town landing land, but it can sell town-owned land. The town landing, I think that has a status that prohibits the town from through the normal process, but I may be wrong on that.
I mean, so we're referring to people as interlopers, but I think that's with quotes, because if it's a town property, then anyone can go there. It's just they can't park. They have to portage in from King Philip or something. Okay.
Well, that's true. You make a really good point. And in fact, Hiawatha, though, was, and I have to look back at some of the documents, but Hiawatha is a public way to water. And I went down there this morning.
Yes.
I was trying to talk to Barbara Austin before, but I'll get with her after and then come back to you guys. But right now Hiawatha is, you have to go down steps. So certainly shell fishermen, it's a little bit more difficult. There's no place to park on Hiawatha, and yet it's a town way to water. And I believe it might have been a town landing at one point. But now how can, certain people aren't going to be able to do the stairs, right? And that I understand, but I was trying to talk to Barbara Austin that there were seawalls that were put in, and this is something that I read also in Shellfish Advisory Board minutes, I don't know, from maybe 10 years ago or something, that this is fairly recent, if you think about it. In the last 10 years, that way of public access has changed significantly, which has had a ripple effect. And so, right, Omaha is privately owned, and I think Denny's right, is called the King Philip, not the Field Point Homeowners Association.
Yep, you're right.
unless we were to somehow expand, but you're not going to want to do this, right? You're not going to want to disturb vegetation in order to create a little bit more road so that we can call it a town landing and then we get an easement, right? I mean, that doesn't sound right either. But I don't know that Omaha, because it's a private road, I mean, it's like the same situation as Lieutenant Island. You're traversing a private road to get to an access point, but unless you're going to call the beach a town landing, I mean, now the town does own, I think that this purchase means that, doesn't the town own Burton Baker?
Yes.
Yeah, so basically you're talking about from the breakwater, I'm pretty sure this is like an argument I made at town meeting, from the breakwater all the way down to Fire Island is now town-owned beach. Even though, right, the high tide, it comes right up to the rocks. But as, John was saying, there are lovely beaches at mid to low tide. So I don't know what we might be able to create there in terms of a town landing. But it seems something will be necessary in order to maintain access. Now, if things went really sour, people could come on the beach at Burton Baker and drive all the way down, but that means they're driving across Sewell's Gutter, and no shellfishman I've talked to thinks that is a good solution. From a conservation, perspective, it just doesn't make sense. The less impact, the better.
That's okay, because,
Right. Okay, and any other input? Well, it sounds like it's a complicated one. And so again, we have three that we're looking at, just to remind people. One is is Sewell's Gutter. One is Indian Neck, and the other is the Agar property. Okay, I don't feel ready to make a decision. I mean, I think there's a lot going into all of these. Any other comments on it?
Of the three, it seems like the Indian Neck property, 82, 239, and possibly 80 would be the one that seems to have the fewest encumbrances. But I'd love to get a site visit to those.
That makes for great open space and recreation purposes, and that's what you're about.
And that's what I was struck when I went out there. I mean, it's not that often that I'm excited. Well, that's not true. I mean, the one we did this year was exciting, but some of the marshes are we're going through our business. It's pretty obvious that they're going to be protected. This is such a beautiful area out there, and the birds are there, a healthy marsh. You get the healthy shellfish. And it looked to us like people are really respecting. We didn't see any evidence of the fence is not still there, and there's no evidence that people are coming out and running over things. I mean, we don't know where the line is exactly, but boy, from the bit we saw, so that would be the one that I'm most excited about, frankly. But I think the other two, both for other reasons, have. Things we really want to take seriously. Okay. Any other comments?
I'll just say that I've been looking at all the town open space, starting with the larger pieces. And when I saw these, I got excited with them. I thought this seemed like, unless there's some issues that I'm not aware of or that may come up, they seem ideal.
Again, even if we move forward with this one, this goes to Nancy's committee, goes to all the other committees, and if there are issues, we'll take a look at it. And given what happened in the the town meeting. Hopefully those issues are out front and we can work on them early and not late.
Just given everything we've said, I'm not sure, I mean, is it, I mean, I've been there, I've seen the property because I've gone out to actually dolphin rescue out there. Do we need to have a meeting after a site visit, or should we just, can we just move ahead? It seems to me everyone's pretty much in consensus that this is property we need to move on. And rather than put it off, why don't we just get us moving on this right now?
I hear you, John, but I feel like some people haven't even done the site visit. I mean, you've been out there a lot. So I don't see what's lost. We have a number of months. November is when it goes out to the other committees. So we have a couple of months to make our decision. You know, I don't see what's to gain by saying, let's do it now. Let's have everybody at least go and make sure we're all on the same page with this is what I would suggest. You know, within the reason, again, I thought the meeting was important today is within a month or two, we're going to have to make a decision. And so we have 3 different proposals out there. Are we going to go for all 3? Will we go for one for this town meeting, or how are we going to proceed? I think to take, you know, we have until November. I think it makes sense to do our homework and to get input from shellfishing, from the committee that's looking at access, et cetera, and make sure there aren't some reasons that we're barking up the wrong tree. But I feel like Fred did. Very frankly, I felt like the land there is really just a lovely area that deserves preservation. And but let's make sure everybody's on board with that, and there aren't other issues that we're not seeing.
Well, it seems like everyone should be able to get out there either as a group or individual within the next week or 2. And, you know, from what everyone says, it sounds like it might be a slam dunk, but I think I agree with you, Bruce, that maybe we should all look first. Or maybe we could set up something where we go to all of those 3 sites. And although some of us have been to the Sewell shredder already. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Okay. Are people okay with that? In other words, deferring? We already have said with the agri property, we're going to wait till next month. Are people okay with deferring that for another month or 2? I think we don't have to make that decision today.
I would say on the Indian Neck property, delay no more than a month. I would love to go see the property, and it would be great to make it a group visit just because I know I'd learn more. But I wouldn't want to stretch it out more than a month. And is there any advantage to inviting, for example, Melissa and or Nancy, you know, people who will also be reviewing these properties to go with us when we go, so we at least can hear any issues that they raise? It wouldn't be required, but at least making that offer.
I think that's a good idea. I like that, Becky.
If you go as a committee, you will need to post, and that's an open meeting, but so they're allowed to come along, but you're not going to deliberate while you're at those. John knows that game.
Right, you cannot say anything that's, you can ask questions, but you cannot talk amongst yourselves about, you know, opinions of things.
We'll just keep our masks on as a reminder, right?
Okay, well, I'll send out an email and we'll figure, and it sounds like there may be pluses and minuses to inviting. We'll get some input from everybody anyway, but maybe it makes sense, at least as a first pass, to go out ourselves. So do I have to put that in as a meeting with Courtney then, Denny?
If you're going to have a group out there, yes.
Okay.
You'll have a meeting point, which you can select being the parking lot by the breakwater and a time and all that sort of stuff. And so Courtney will know how to do it.
Okay.
Bruce, again, I like to simplify things. Unless people, since, as Danny said, we can't really discuss much. We can ask questions, but that's about it. I think the issue is if we can identify the property, we should just do it as individuals. We won't have to have a committee meeting. We won't worry about, violating any, rules. This is, I think Sewell's gutter and the Agra property is so much more complicated, needs so much more attention. This, I think, is pretty straightforward. I think we should just all individually go out there, save ourselves, the hassle of organizing another committee and getting everybody figuring out where to park, et cetera, although it's not that difficult.
That's probably one of the easier ones, John.
Yeah,
Parking.
that's true.
The parking out there. Yeah, other people thoughts on that? I mean, I don't have any strong feelings one way or the other. I hear where you're coming from, but I think the one thing I'd say is it's nice when you're out there as a group. But I do hear you. This I think is more straightforward and it's not as complicated as the other two properties are. But I think it's nice to go as a group and take a look. But I hear where you're coming from, and it's much easier to do it by ones or twos. And
I think we need a group, visit to the other two properties of which parking is a problem, because there are questions here. Do you know exactly where the property lines are? Where is this? I don't know. This is not very difficult. So I would suggest this one, we just individually make a point of going out before our next meeting. I make that as a motion. To vote down, then we can move forward. But we need to move forward.
Yeah, we need to. And I have to stop very shortly because I have another meeting I'm going to. Okay, so that's a motion. Motion seconded.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'm opposed.
I'm questioning, the motion is to just individually or.
Individually go out to see it. That's correct.
I'm not sure you need a motion for that sort of stuff.
Well, the only thing is we have to, if we're going to go as a group, we have to contact Courtney. It has to be a meeting, et cetera. So it's,
That would take a motion.
right. Okay, so how is that? Maybe we have to do this individually to see how the voting is going. Let me try again. All in favor of going out individually? That's what the motion is. I can't see. You have to say aye because I can't see all the people.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, anybody opposed? No. All right. So the ayes have it. So we will do that individually. And now we went out as a group to Sewell's Gutter. There were 4 of us that were out there. Do people want to do that again? No comments? I think the Audubon, the Agra property is really worth a look.
Yeah, I
Fred and I
definitely
went out,
want to
but
do
it
that.
is tricky. I understand, and we don't have the map right in front of us, but I think it's a tricky one personally. And so I think to find a time that we could go out as a group to do that. So I'll send out a note with some times, and then wherever we can get the most people, we'll move forward.
And if you could also send the map that you mentioned.
Right.
The Oliver
Right.
map. That would be really helpful to have when we visit that property.
Yeah, well, I can certainly make copies of it, but I'll try sending it beforehand.
Okay.
See if take a picture and get it sent, whatever you need.
Okay, thanks.
Does everyone have the information that, we talked about, and I think I sent it out to everyone with the discussion of the 1963 town meeting, the acquisition of the so-called land there, and the lawyer's response to it? Does everyone have that information? Okay. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel on that one.
Okay, so I will send something. I don't know if we need to vote on that, but it sounds like everyone is in support. So I'll send out some times and see if we can get a time to go out there, take a look at it. I will bring all this information just if anybody has some questions. So I'd like to move to adjourn. I have to go into another meeting shortly.
I second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Opposed.
Okay. We are done. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bruce. Hey, Bruce,
Thank you.
a non-related question here.
Yeah.
Everyone else can leave if they want. On the turtles,
Yeah.
I went down Sunday morning and there was only one nest left, and I
Right.
haven't heard about the other one.
Oh yeah, I sent something out, Tom. I don't know if you didn't. I'll send it out again. Basically, the Smith girls, the women. I'm sorry, the ones that are staying at that house on the Donaldson house. Were walking up there just as I was coming in, and there were 5 turtles on the surface. There were 11 out of 12, and they helped release them and that sort of thing. So it was a lovely nest. We also had the same day, we had a wild nest just up above that one. And there were 8 out of 8 eggs all opened and tracks leaving, etc. So I have at least 5 wild nests, and I know there are several more.
Yeah, okay.
So
Well, I did get your note from last
Oh.
Friday or whatever it was, and I guess that included that one.
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right.
So there's one left.
One left, maybe tomorrow.
Well, knock on wood.
All right,
All right. Bye-bye.
thanks.